so great to see all of you this morning, and I want to welcome you to our session this morning called 7 Red Lights. And Michael Johnson. Michael Johnson. You say hi back. You doing all right? It's good to see you. 7 red lights. It's really about 7 signs or 7 warnings that if we don't pay attention to, bad things happen. If we're not aware of them, it's going to be not a good ending. AAA has done a recent research on just this idea of running red lights. And what is amazing is what they found is that in the last 10 years, running red lights has actually gone up, not because of population, but really because of distractions. That is why exactly red lights happen, is because people get caught off guard, not paying attention, not focused, and so again, running red lights happen. But the negative side about that is that obviously people get hurt when somebody runs a red light. In fact, that death rate actually is on the rise. But what was interesting to me, and what I found interesting, and I thought it applied to us as leaders and pastors and people that care about the direction of the church, is that the passengers, more than half of the people that die in red light running accidents are passengers. Those that we're carrying, those that we're driving with, those that are on the ride with us. And so it's important for us to know when it's time to stop and focus and pay attention and dive in and try to see how we can do this better. I know you're here because you care about the church. You're here because you desire for churches to be strong and vibrant and life-giving and hope-filled and loving and meaningful. No one desires a church that's dead and broken and boring. That's not what we're here for. So I'm going to give you 7 red lights, and I think you need to sit up, pay attention, put your seatbelt on, because every one of these you're going to experience at some point. Maybe not all of these red lights are in your life now, but let me say this. There will be a couple of these that affect every person in this room. And so I think you have some notes. I want you to dive in with me, and we'll begin this journey together. But number 1 red light that I think you need to pause and stop is what I call the erosion of leadership confidence. The erosion of leadership confidence. The erosion of leadership confidence. This is one red light we never want to admit out loud. No one ever admits this. No one ever is up front and just says, you know what, I feel like there's a lot of erosion in the confidence of leading. No one ever really talks about that. It's something that is internal. It's something that gets in our spirit, in our psyche, and something that begins to war against us. And we begin to wonder if we're ever going to be more, or do more, or if ever is going to be better. And this leadership confidence is so important because it really is an adversary. It's like a civil war inside of you. If we don't determine, or if we don't fix, or we don't be mindful of it. What erosion of leadership confidence looks like is simply this. I'm not sure I can do this anymore. Erosion of leadership confidence is something like, man, I've tried that before. It could be something like, I'm not sure I'm the one to do this. I think maybe someone else needs to do this. Maybe feelings of not feeling relevant anymore. Like maybe I'm a little bit out of my league. Maybe I can't connect. And you begin to sense some irrelevancy in your life. Those are haunting things. Those are not just fleeting things. When they get a hold of you or attach to you, they really begin to do real damage into leaders and leaders' ability to see through and see clear and move forward. When this really begins to happen, frustration becomes a part of this erosion of your leadership. Everything frustrates you. Everything, it seems like it can blow up and be a big deal. I remember one leader said something like this, and it was really an insightful thought. And if you'll hear the undertones of this, you'll understand what I mean by this. But he said, you need to be okay with low levels of frustration all the time. You need to be okay with low levels of frustration all the time. When you're dealing with people and lives that are broken and situations that are not perfect, perfection was lost in the garden. When you deal with real life, there is a low grade of frustration that is a constant truth in every leader's life. But when those frustrations begin to sabotage you, and those frustrations begin to get your emotions and feelings misdirected, and you're now responding or making decisions out of emotions, and when you begin to do things that, man, maybe I came too hard, maybe I wasn't clear, maybe I should have done this. This is erosion of leadership confidence. Some of the factors that really lean into this leadership confidence that begins to erode in our life is sometimes it's age. Sometimes it's age. As we grow older, the truth is you sometimes begin to wonder these things. Sometimes it can be team collaboration, meaning you have a group of leaders around you, but all you do is really talk. Nothing really gets done. It's just a lot of talk and a lot of things and good ideas. But sometimes the leadership collaboration brings in the erosion. Like, can I get us off go? Can I move us forward? Maybe failed attempts. You tried a couple things and it didn't pan out. Details didn't come through. Things didn't get right, misaligned. Sometimes it's a failed attempt. Another real reason, and I think we all need to focus in on this, is what I call emerging leaders. Maybe younger leaders or other churches in the district. Other people that seem like they got fresh ideas and they got fresh energy. And all of a sudden we see these emerging leaders and we begin to reflect it back on ourselves and say, maybe I need to be more careful. Maybe I need to watch out for them. And really a comparison attitude can get in our lives, and a judging spirit can get a part of us. All of this is a leadership erosion. It's just chipping away. It's just washing, eroding leadership confidence in leaders. Maybe you feel a little disconnected from who you are. God called you to do your mantle that God placed on you, the ministry that God put in your care. These are factors that come against leaders. And I'm speaking to a group of leaders here, and I'm privileged to do that. But I want you to know these are realities. That no one says this out loud. No one vocalizes this. But this is a true internal game that happens to leaders all over the place. And so what I want you to understand is every now and then you need to flex your leadership muscle. If you want to fix this, if you want to get this right, you need to flex your leadership muscle every now and then. Let me give you some examples how to do that. Most churches are one tough conversation away from a breakthrough. Amen. Okay? They got a leader that's not aligned. They're a full-blown mature idiot, and they're not with us. They're gossip. They're work against the team. They're EQ, meaning their emotional quotient. They're not good team players. They don't play well in the sandbox. They're unhealthy emotionally. I mean, you let them lead a project, and when that project is done, there's about 9 body bags that you got to carry out. Right? People that walk with them are fried, right? They're jilted. Okay? All of us that have led understand that. And most people, when you are experiencing a leadership erosion, you don't want to have that tough conversation. You don't want to sit down and deal with truth. You're hoping a good church service and great. But here's what I know. I've lived long enough and I've walked through many of these. That there is no avoiding a tough conversation. None. And the sooner you have that tough conversation, in fact, while I'm saying this, people are coming into your mind. The sooner you have that tough conversation, I promise you, the sooner you have it, you begin to flex your leadership muscle. There's a whole lesson that I'd love to give you about having tough conversations. Because the church, you ready? Hear me, listen. The church, the reason we suffer sometimes is because we're too nice. Okay? I'm not talking about being loving. I'm not talking about being welcoming. I'm talking about leaders that are helping, leaders that are on your team, leaders that are leading. You need to have a tough conversation. Right. And that's flexing your leadership muscle. Here's another one. That the longer it to make a decision tells you about the health of your organization. If you got to get through committees and you got to get people to sign off, and man, that can be really taxing and really boring. There's some times, and I'm not talking about being autocratic, and I'm not talking about being authoritative. I get sometimes. You make clear decisions. But you should be able to make decisions quickly. The longer it takes for you to make a decision tells you about the flexing of your leadership muscle. Here's another one. If you're going to flex your leadership muscle, if you want to do one thing leaving this conference, and you want to say, where do I begin? How does this look? I want to say this. The best way to start flexing your leadership muscle is do an honest evaluation of your church. Do an honest evaluation of your church. Do an honest evaluation of your church. Put it under a microscope and have an honest evaluation of your church. Because we really like biased platitudes that affirm what we're doing. We could be headed over a cliff, but if we're amening each other over a cliff, we're okay with that. We like that. It feels good to go over a cliff, okay? Because that's exactly what tends to happen when you have leadership erosion. Number 2 red light is feeling like your best days are behind you. Feeling like your best days are behind you. It's a signal that the mission of your church is malfunctioning. Okay? When you feel like your best days are behind you. So all of us know that there's a lost world. All of us know there are people in needs and families in needs and disciples to be made. All of us know this. Okay? But when you begin to feel like your best days are behind you, that's a red light. Okay? That is a really scary place to be. Let me just kind of point this and paint this for you a little bit. We'll put it right there. That's the first lapel mic right there. See that? Okay? The best days are behind you. So, church life pretty much goes like this. This is church life, okay? And I'm going to break this down. Okay? This is church life. And so really, when you're looking at church life, this is accelerating, okay? You're accelerating, you're starting, it's fun, it's fresh, it's new, it's accelerating, okay? It's getting off the ground. It's fun. You feel the energy. It's nice, and people are in, and they love what's going on. When you get here, you begin to really boom, okay? This is like numbers start happening. Things begin to change. I mean, people know that something good is happening. This is a wonderful, wonderful place to be. There's a lot of great momentum. Things are easy. The sun's shining. It's not 0 degrees outside. It's great. I mean, everybody loves what's going on. It's easy to talk about church and easy to talk about what God's doing. It's a redemptive lift. Okay? This is church life. Not just 1 or 2 churches, every church. Okay? This is decelerating. Okay? The wheels are not coming off. The barn's not burning, but it's not as powerful, passionate. It's a little bit more work. You gotta put a little bit more effort to make something happen. Right. Here, if you don't catch it here, by the way, you die. Okay? And churches close their doors all the time. Okay? Churches close their door all the time. This is church life, all right? This is church life. And if you don't pay attention to it, you're going to feel like your best days are behind you and you don't know what to do. You're going to feel like maybe your time has run out. That's church life. Every church goes through this. But the wise leaders understand that there are times that I need to bend the curve. Okay? I need to do something to bend the curve. You can have great... Listen, let me just be real honest with you, okay? Azusa Street is not in existence anymore. Right. Yeah. I didn't know if you didn't know that, okay? That may be news to you. But Azusa Street is not around anymore. Now, we're all grateful for its effect, and we're thankful for it. But something happened at It's not that you're a bad leader. It's not that you don't have the right personality. It's none of that. It's understanding this is something I need to focus on, and I need to find a place to bend the curve. All right, you with me? All right, so if we're going to bend the curve, you got to understand a couple of things. If you want to really, here's a great question to ask. Okay? This is a fabulous question to ask. I would take this to my leaders. I have taken this question to my leader, and it's simply this, leaders, simply this. What one thing, if we did in the next 6 months, would radically change our church? Okay? What one thing? Because here's the problem. Where I feel people think the best days are behind us is we confuse vision with mission. Let me say that again. We confuse vision with mission. Vision is the overarching grand thing that we're trying to do. We're trying to win the world. We're trying to reach our city. We're trying to have revival. At least most of us are, okay? Amen? Give me a good amen or only, all right? Okay. That's what you're trying to do. If you're not trying to do that, get up and leave now, okay? Right? We're trying, that's the vision. God called us to a city, to impact the city. We want revival. We want church growth. We want God to move in our city. Amen? All right, okay? That's the vision. But if you can't tell me what you're working on right now, you're confusing vision with mission. See, vision is like we want to win the war, but mission is this is the bridge we're taking today. Right? We want to win the war. Okay, that's the goal. That's the goal. We're going to win the war. But the mission is this is the bridge that we are going to take today. Yeah. And a lot of churches get overwhelmed by the overarching vision. And we'll never reach our city. We're never going to make a difference. And we've been doing this for 30 years. Okay, great. So what are you going to do in the next 6 months that would radically transform your church? And you focus. You think big. You think big inside the box. Don't say, I don't have enough resources. I don't have the people. I don't have the... Whatever you think you don't have. Whatever you do have, this is what God is really challenging me with lately. Here, ready? Here it is. That whatever my next step is, it is already within my reach. Okay? David, the sling was already in his reach to kill Goliath. The miracle, the oil cruse was already in the house. Moses, the staff was already in his hand. Whatever God is going to do through you, it is already within your reach. See, we always think, well, man, if I get so-and-so, and if I can get a new this, and if we had more resources, we think it's some weird, far outlandish thing that's going to help us, and it's not. If you're not a steward with what's already in your reach, why would God waste something beautiful that you're not going to use anyways? Right? Okay. So we have to understand this is really, really important. That when what is that next 6 months? The next 6, write that down. What could you do? Take it to your team. Get a piece of paper like this and write every idea. And then come to one idea. What are we going to do in the next 6 months that would radically transform our church? You got to think big inside the box. Don't think, see, here's what happens. People get an idea, an outlandish idea, and then they howl themselves to death. They have killed dreams and vision because they howl it to death. Not how. How are we going to do that? How is that possible? How is that going to work? How is anybody going to? We howl ourselves to death. Don't let a negative person in your team kill every great idea. Well, we never done that before. That ain't going to work. Jesus doesn't like that, you know. You can howl things to death. You want to know how Disney comes up with things? Okay? They call it the yes and principle. Whenever they're trying to get a new ride, a new movie, a new whatever, they throw ideas and no one's allowed to shoot it down. You can set the parameters at any meeting. Folks, in this meeting, Somebody say amen. Okay? If you don't know what you're doing in the next 6 months, you need to really, really, really focus on that and bend the curve. The next slide that we need to be, it's called ingrown culture. Ingrown culture. An ingrown culture will gradually kill the church body by slowly and methodically sifting and destroying its effectiveness. I'm telling you, it's systematic. This ingrown culture, you don't even see it happening, but it begins to focus in. Everything is about us. Everything is about what we like and our preference and our style. Everything has become about us. You know what's really frightening to me? Is that sometimes we don't even acknowledge there are lost people in our church. We start using words like, you know the story of the Bible. You have to assume that they do not know anything about the Bible. Right? I was doing a Bible study, and we came to the story of David and Goliath. And I asked, do you know the story of David and Goliath? And they said, you know, we've heard about that, but we thought that was more like a parable. We didn't even know that was in the Bible. Are you kidding me? David and Goliath, you didn't know that was in the Bible? They did not even know it was in the Bible. So you have to understand that we tend to grow inward focused. What's ingrown culture? Let me just give you some ideas of what an ingrown culture looks like. Making sure members are feeling happy. Okay? There needs to be a constant reminder to church people. This place is for lost people too. We have to make lost people feel welcome and loved and accepted here too. When you're making decisions on how the already saved want the church to be like. The already saved. The already convinced. The already redeemed. When we're focusing on that, you don't see it. No one thinks it's happening. But it begins to be an ingrown focus. We begin to turn around. Reggie McNeil said the church does not exist for itself. When it thinks it does, we've created a church-centric world. Our prescription of reality is skewed. By external focus of ministry, I mean we radically reorient to understand that we exist primarily to do ministry beyond ourselves. We are here to reach people that are lost, broken. So questions to determine where you stand. If you really want to know, if you really get, this is an unbiased assessment if you're ingrown focus. What does your church calendar look like? Because your church calendar will tell you a lot about if this is ingrown. If this is focusing in on your church, or do you focus outward? What does your Sunday gatherings look like? When you come together, what is the language that you use? When you come together, what is the focus? Do you even expect people to show up? Do people that are guests, do you intentionally try to make them feel welcome? You'll learn a lot of this if you're in my class about systems, because this is a very big deal here. But church's tendency is to grow inward and grow inward focus. Do you spend more time keeping people or reaching people? Okay? Do you spend more time keeping people or reaching people? I remember a great leader, a great influencer of mine, started a church, and really God blessed them, and their church will really begin to grow and experience strength and health and vitality. And I remember we're sitting in a conversation, we're picking his brain, just asking things, and just, what would you do different? I remember the question was, what would you do different? Well, if you could start it all over, what did you learn? I mean, you've come through some great things and some difficult things. What would you learn? I'll never forget what they said. He said this, he said, if I had to do it all over again, I would let people go sooner. He said, I held on to people too long and it dragged my heart out with them. It emptied me. I'm telling you, from that moment, let me just be very, very clear. People come and go. That's church life. Okay? People come and go. Can you just say it with me? People come and go. Yes, your church, my church. people come and go.
Right.
But the moment you walk out that door, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to love you, but you're not taking my heart.
Yeah.
There's too many pastors and too many leaders that have been wounded by people and been devastated by people, and they'll say, I'll never love like that. I'll never invest like that. I'll never care like that. I'll never be in their life like that. And they are wounded, and they are hurt, and they get jaded, and they look skeptical at every opportunity and every new family, and we project our old pain and our old hurt onto new opportunities. And I just got to be honest with you. I got to be honest with you. I made up my mind. The moment you decide not to come to this church, I want you to know you have my love, but you will not have my heart. Please don't confuse the two.
Yes. Yes.
And if you want to know how that works, your heart belongs to God. My heart is in the hands of God. My heart belongs to Him. I'm going to love you. But when you are pour everything and all that's invested in them, can I tell you, there's been a lot of damage that's been done. Wounded leaders. And so they can't see clearly now. And they're not joyful. They're survival. They're protected. They keep people at arm's length. And I'm just telling you, it becomes inward focus. That's not what Jesus did. And that's not what the Bible calls us to do. So remember, you can love everyone. You're supposed to love everyone. You're supposed to even like them too. But you're supposed to love them, okay? But you're not going to have my heart. Number 4, the culture of the church and the ministry is misaligned. Okay? The culture of ministerial misalignment. This is huge, folks. This is really, really huge. Of all the things, and I get privileged to talk to leaders and come alongside church staff teams, and this is the issue. And the reason I know it's an issue because it happens everywhere, and it happened at our church. So just recently, we had a church consultant come in, and we wanted them to just kind of plow through our church and talk to our leaders. We wanted it to get raw. We wanted to just unpackage things that were underneath the surface and things that people were facing and feeling and challenged by. And we pulled the pin on the grenade and we threw it in the room, and man, it just went. Okay, just being honest, it was brutal. And one of the things the church consultant did that I'll never forget, he did something like this. And this is every church, okay? This is every church. So the idea is this is your church. And that's a wonderful church. And what happens, it starts doing this, is that like the youth start going this direction. And the ladies, they start going in this direction. And men go in this direction. And music is going in this direction, and evangelism's going in this direction, and children are going in this direction, and all of a sudden, here's what happens, okay? The church never gets more than just static. I mean, you have a great youth revival, man, it's moving in this direction. You have a great ladies retreat or ladies conference, and the church is moving, but it doesn't take long for the church. And this is where a lot of you, I don't even know you, but I'm going to tell you, this is where a lot of you are. You're right here. And you're hoping something changes. You're hoping something breaks. But it's just nothing more than static. It's just moving. It's just a lot of commotion. There's no synergy. There's no focus. And that was our church. Okay? Wonderful ministries and great ideas and great programs. And people love cookie sales. And people love going out. And I mean, just it is great. But there's nothing more than static. And then he said, what if we could get the church and everybody going in the same direction? To make this point in my church, I gave every one of our leaders a little squishy ball, a little like a relaxed stress ball. You ever seen one of those? And I said this, in a meeting like this. I said, I want you to find a wall, and I want you to throw it at a wall. And every one of those leaders picked a different wall. They're throwing it over here, throwing it over here, throwing it over here. So I said, go get it. They went and got their squishy, and then
Yeah.
But if you get in the same direction, can I tell you, you don't just have inspiration, you don't even need inspiration. Right? I mean, most of you are married here. Are you always inspired to be married? All right, if you're sitting by your spouse, you don't have to do anything. All right? So let me just be honest with you. No, you don't, okay? But because you understand what you want and where you're going, you're in, you love, you care, you endure, you go through things.
Sure. Yeah.
You don't live in a relationship because you're inspired.
Right.
But I hope you have inspiration sometimes. I hope you enjoy your marriage. I hope it's great and good, loving and happy. I want you to do that. But it is always that. You are out of your ever-loving mind. Right? Well, that's church life too. That's ministry as well. That's why we stay focused. And say, you know what? I don't know what this looks like for you. I can tell you what it looks like for Goodlettsville. I can tell you that. I can tell you what it looks like. Because if you don't know what it looks like, I'm telling you, things get messy quick. If you want to know if you're really on the same team, if you really want to know, is any of you sitting by a leader in your church or a member of your church? Maybe you are, maybe you're not. Okay. I just did this last week. Got a piece of paper. I gave a blank piece of paper to all of our leaders. In our leadership, just to show you a structure, we have what we call our senior leadership team, the highest level of leaders in the church. And we have about 9 leaders, okay, 9 systems, and that's what that you will hear that next lesson about, and their wives. So that number could be about 20 people sometimes, okay? And I gave them all a blank piece of paper, and I said this: write the vision of our church. I want you to write the vision of our church. When I got all those pieces of papers back, I said, you don't want to put your name on it. I just want to prove something to you. So I began to just read what they wrote. And I wasn't surprised, but almost every one of them, there was a few of them that had it, did not even know what the vision of the church was. There is no way for you to ever make progress if everyone doesn't know what we're doing. You want to test? You want to test? This is not I'm just talking about alignment. If you want to know if you're misaligned or if you're aligned, pass out a blank piece of paper and ask all your leaders, would you write down what the vision of this church is? And you ask that until every one of those leaders are saying the very same thing. There are so many churches, I'm telling you, the reason they don't make progress is because they never get aligned. They never get singular focused on the mission we're trying to do. And our church consultant, he came and he asked us, he said, I want to know everything you do in this church. I want to know everything you do. I don't care if it's a prayer meeting, a staff meeting, a retreat, Sunday service, Wednesday night Bible study, small. I want to know everything you do. We listed everything we did, okay? In our church, it was 84 things that we did. Okay? 84 things. And I remember him, we had all these different things and events and that we love. Some of them sacred cows. We've been doing these for years. I mean, it's part of our culture. It's our tradition. This is who we are. And I remember him walking up to the board of all these things, and he just got an eraser, and he just started erasing some things.
Yeah.
And when he started erasing things, I almost, had a heart attack. I said, whoa, what are you doing? He says, why do you do these things? He said, you know what you need to do? You need to cut your activities in half. My circuit started blowing. I'd be like, did God just tell you that? Like, was that? I mean, how do you go half? I mean, well, why can't it be like, 60%? grace. This is like he just put water in my thirsty, parched soul when he said that, you know, it is okay to come do something and say, we're going to pause this for a moment. So we had, like, for instance, a Labor Day picnic. I mean, this is like a sacred cow. I mean, I think Moses and Abraham come to our Labor Day picnic. I mean, it is one of those things that we've been doing forever and a day. And I mean, it's God ordained. It's the 11th commandment. I mean, it's one of those deals. Okay? And when we started lining that up, you know what? We said, we're going to pause Labor Day picnic. Can I just be honest with you? I had maybe 2 people come to me and ask me, why are we doing Labor Day picnic? What we thought was living a holy lifestyle for Jesus by having Labor Day picnic. What we thought was the 4th plan of salvation. We didn't even bleep the radar screen on most of the people of our church. You need to go through and you need to have an eraser and say, not what are we doing, what are we not going to do? Because you're so busy, you can't get a line. Now I feel like I'm meddling. This is not good, folks. Okay? This is not good. And honestly, when you get too busy, you get low morale. When you get too busy, you get silo ministries. Because people are too... Here's how you know if you're too busy. When your departments cannot help one another. Woo! Right? This is how you... When your Sunday school department can't help your youth department.
Yeah.
When they cannot team up. See, here's what I can tell you. Great teams... let me back up. Good teams... work with each other. Bad teams work against each other. But great teams work for each other. I mean, that's so good. I mean, you can just put it right in your head. I mean, that's just good.
Sure.
We use that. Too. That's language. That's language in our team. We want to work for one another. And the way that you know you're too busy, if you cannot work for one another. All right? Let's continue. Red light number 5 is plateaued or declining numbers. Talking about church numbers is almost like talking about somebody's weight. It just never don't go good no matter what it looks like. Okay? Right? I mean, you just don't talk about somebody's weight, right? We get a little nervous and we don't want to talk about church numbers, okay? But leaders should pay attention to church numbers. In fact, this is the latest survey that came out from Lifeway Research that said 6 out of 10 Protestant churches are plateaued or declining in attendance, and more than half, get this, had less than 10 people become Christians in the last 12 months. Plateaued or declining up. I'm talking about a red light that you need to focus on. Okay? Now, I'm going to be honest, numbers don't always tell the whole story. I get that. Numbers don't always tell the complete story. There could be difficult decisions. All right? Difficult decisions. Any leader that's pastoring has to make difficult decisions. All right? I mean, this past year, a family who's in our church generations. I mean, from granddad to grandkids to generations. One of these family members I had to ask to leave the church. Why, you ask? I'm glad you asked. Because they slept with more people than just their spouse. And at some point, people are wondering, Pastor, is this the kind of church we are? We can just sweep immorality and all this stuff under the carpet and it's okay? Right? Pastor, I guess that's kind of what we are? No, that's not the kind of church we are. So when I have to look at a family member and say, you can't come back on this campus only for a funeral and for a wedding, that's hard. Okay? They don't tell the whole story. I'm not saying this is easy. And I'm not saying your numbers do not indicate that. Okay? There are sometimes extenuating circumstances that affect numbers. I get that. I also recognize there's natural seasons. But what I want you to understand are facts are our friends. Facts are our friend. When things start to plateau or decline, it's way too easy to ignore the numbers, manipulate them to say what we clearly want them to say, or replace the math. And we start using anecdotes and accolades to make us feel better about the numbers. We'll say things like this: hey, you know what? I talked to so-and-so, and man, they love what's going on around here.
Come on.
Okay? Man, I really, well, so-and-so cried last Sunday, and it was just a powerful move of God. Man, didn't the worship go good? And I'm not undermining that. Those are all things. In fact, every week, our team asks questions like this when we open our meetings to unpack and dissect the last week, and we'll ask questions. Where was God at work? We'll ask, what was missing or confusing? Where can we improve on the Sunday? These are questions that we throw on the table and ask our leaders to answer and digest and go over, mull over. I get it. When we have to understand that when we're leading the church and when we can absolutely talk about and say things to make us feel better. Man, that was a great message. My mother-in-law prayed through. Man, that's fantastic. We'll eventually get to the point to say something like that. It's not all about numbers.
Right. Yeah.
And I get that. Okay? I'm not undermining that. Again, talking about church numbers is like talking about weight. Hey, you know, I get it. It's tough. So, to ignore the numbers is almost certain that you're going to not like the numbers that are coming in the future. Okay? So what do we do? My opinion is this. Is that you need a new scorecard. Okay? An old scorecard is simply this. It's budgets, it's bodies, and it's buildings. Okay? That's an old scorecard. It's budgets, it's bodies, and it's buildings. That's how we have graded ourselves for years. And when you compare that with others, that's tough. Right? Budgets, body, building. That's an old scorecard. So let me introduce to you a new scorecard. Because numbers matter. Here's some ideas. How many people miss twice a week in a row? Tell you something new that we're doing. So anybody in our church that misses twice 2 weeks in a row, okay? That list comes to my desk. And I will set time aside that week, and I will phone, I will call, I will text, and just see how they're doing. I don't ask them where you've been. I just check and see how they're doing. Now I will tell you this. I have literally seen a change in attendance by following up on people that have missed 2 Sundays in a row. In the denominational world, someone that is faithful to church comes to church twice a month. Now, I think you're lost and going straight to hell if you come twice a month, okay? Now, that's my opinion. I'm going to stick to it. I'm not judging, but that's my opinion, okay? All right? I wouldn't raise like that. You know, when the church door was open, we were there. I mean, revival, we were there, right? Can I get an amen? Somebody say it. Thank you. Yeah, ooh, I feel better. Okay? But in general, for those that have zero apostolic background, zero biblical background, zero religious background, for them to show up twice a month, is historic. It's monumental. Okay? I'm not saying that that's all right. I'm just saying that's what people use. In fact, financial institutions use that as well. If you come twice a month, you're in. You're a member. Man, you need to be floating around the place because you are definitely saved. Okay? No, you're lost, going to hell, you need to pray through. Okay, that's my opinion. But if they miss 2 Sundays in a row, they're going to hear from you. I missed it. How are you? Just want to let you know. Praying for you, thinking about you. That's a new scorecard. Okay? The buzz that's going on in my spirit and the words that I'll use it this Sunday. This Sunday is my Vision Casting Sunday. I'm going to speak into our church where we're going for this 2020. But let me just tell you, this is what I really feel. I'm going to put it in your spirit. You can only do and be responsible for what you can control. I can't control somebody to come to church. I can't control somebody get the Holy Ghost. I can't control that. I can control inviting. I can control reaching out. I can control that. So that's a new scorecard for us. Let me give you a couple other examples. How many people are in small groups? You may or may not have a small group system, but that is a number that you can track and ask how many people are in small groups. How many are involved in ministry? When you look at your church, okay, and whatever that number is, that percentage should be pretty good, okay? How many people are involved in ministry? Whatever that is right now, let's just say for the sake of this conversation that 50% of people that go to your church are involved in some type of ministry. Make it a goal. We'd like to see 60 people involved in ministry. That is a number that you can track. Another thing is, how many people have finished discipleship journey? For us, it's discipleship journey. For you, it's a discipleship class, a beginner's class, a new believer's class. I don't know what the language you would use. For us, it is discipleship journey. How many people are finishing discipleship journey? That's a number. That's a scorecard that we want to use. How many first-time guests do we have? Okay? Because really the truth of the matter is, first-time guests have everything to do with people inviting them to church. The leaders invite people. Do you invite people to church? Oh, I get it. I know we've all been swallowed up by thinking of this thinking, okay? Which I don't think is biblical, by the way. But I want to say that if I offend you, I'm not trying to offend you, I promise you, okay? But I was raised with the idea, shepherds don't beget sheep. You don't even have to raise your hand on that one, okay? Where somehow you graduate, you're a big boy and girl now. You don't have to witness. You don't have to disciple. You don't have to invite people to church. Let me tell you, if you're not inviting people to church, it's hypocrisy to think you can ask somebody else to invite people to church. I'm not even going to look at anybody. I'm just going to turn around over here. Okay? Right? You need to put it on you and pray it every day. God, help me invite somebody to church. Help me invite somebody to church. Help me have a spiritual conversation. Lord, help me to have a spiritual conversation with lost people. Right? I would just, that is a scorecard you can, if you really want to pause at this green light of plateau number, declining numbers, then we need to shift the game. And not just to make ourselves feel better, but we need to get a new scorecard. I'm almost done. Got it over here. Lack of discipleship. Lack of discipleship. Lack of discipleship. We are called to make disciples. And let me just draw this for you really quick, because I think this is so important for you to understand. Okay? But if you ever want to know how something becomes a fad, a trend, how something becomes culture, how our world, I don't care if it's a law, I don't care if it's sin, it could be whatever it is, okay? If you ever want to know how something gets traction, it's the law, and I want to make sure that I get the law correct. I want to make sure I tell you. It's called the law of diffusion of innovation. The diffusion of innovation. It's the law of diffusion of innovation. It comes from Simon Sinek. You can YouTube it, okay? But basically, I'm going to spiritualize it, but basically, he says it's like this, okay? And he said, like, there are some people that are early adapters, okay? And that's a percentage. And he said, then there's people that jump on a little bit quicker, and let's just say that's a 15%. Then you get those that are, it becomes a trend, and then there's those that are on the backside of the trend. And then these people right here, their phones are still probably attached to the wall somewhere, okay? And the lawn cord, right? Okay? They probably still, have AOL dial. I don't know, okay? They don't even think, a smartphone is smart. So, okay? So this is how something becomes a trend, a fad. This is how it becomes culture. But there is the tipping point in this where there's no going back. Okay? There's a tipping point. That tipping point is right here. Okay? That tipping point. That tipping point is right here. That number is 15 to 18%. When you get to about a 15 or 18%, you begin to to change culture. So I get up in our church, and I say, if we want to be a disciple-making church, if that's serious to us, then we need between 15 and 18% of you to sign up and sit up and say, I will be a disciple-maker for Jesus Christ. If we're going to never go back, there's an actual number for that, okay? There's an actual number. For us, it was about 83 people. I needed 83 people to sign up and say, I'm going to be a disciple-maker. I don't know what between 15 and 18% means to you, but if you want to change culture, you need to have them understand how culture is shifted. This is exactly how trends, fads, how things begin to shift. I don't care if it's homosexuality, I don't care if it's marijuana. You want to know how marijuana begins to just keep growing? It's because there becomes a tipping point where there's no turning back. And if it's true in the natural, then it's true in the supernatural. So we started our church saying, we need between 15 and 18%, whatever that number is. I need 20 people that will come in with me this year. I will be a disciple maker. Last one and I'm done, okay? Is the diminishing noise of children. That's a red light. That is a red light. I love it when I go to churches, and there's church people, and there's kids, and I'm going to tell you something. It gets wild sometimes. I know, okay? Like, where's your parents? These kids are unruly. And then I realize it's my kid. Okay, like, oh. Right? Okay? And we want our churches so nice and neat. And I'm going to tell you something. When you get the diminishing noise of children and babies crying, dropping toys, and something happening, I'm going to tell you, that is a red light flashing at you and saying, you need to pay attention here. So you don't want to know, dude, I got to hear you real quick. You know what you do? You put your best leaders in your children's ministry, and you budget it as much as you possibly can. You actually have fundraisers for your children's ministry. You actually let resources go to children's ministry, and you invest head on. If you walked into our children's ministry, I'm just telling you, okay? I had Brother Shock there this past Sunday. He was with our staff retreat, walked into our children's ministry, and just turned around and walked out. He said, Brother Zuniga, he said, this is like Disneyland. I'm not joking. We literally put hundreds of thousands of dollars into our children's ministry. We put our very best leaders, our very best young leaders in children's ministry. Energy needs to be in your children's ministry. Okay? When you start hearing the diminishing noise, that's not a good sign. Mortuaries are quiet. I mean, you need to speak in tongues on that one, because that is just so true right there, okay? I pray this has helped you. Thank God for this opportunity. Would you just bow your heads? I want to pray over you. Lord Jesus, God, I have spoken my heart to these fantastic men and women that care so much about what you love and what you left. And God, the church matters. You did not call us to this time, God, to miss up or to fail or to flunk. You called us, God, to learn, to grow. And Lord, I ask God for something, an idea, something that we said would inspire our hearts. In Jesus' name we pray. Can everybody say amen? Amen. Amen. Thank you so very much. I wish I had time for Q&A, but thank you very much.